Okay, I'll start by sharing all my slides and code examples for this talk. And while waiting for you to take pictures, I want to ask you how many of you are testing your products today for accessibility issues. Please raise your hands. Okay, that's half of you. I was hoping for a little more. How many of you are using automated tooling to do this for you? Please raise your hands. A handful. After today, I'm hoping that more of you will be doing this because it's really, really easy. Even the cameraman will be able to do it, I assure you. Hello, I'm Kristoffer. I'm an engineering manager from Variant based in Oslo, Norway. But enough about me, let's talk about accessibility. Because accessibility is often an afterthought, something done late in the development cycle, sometimes during the testing phase. But also during the monitoring phase, when your design, your code, and your product is discriminating real human beings. So how do we shift it left and make it repeatably and predictably in all our development cycle steps? Well, we could do lots of manual labor, but that is boring, it's costly, and it's prone to the human factor. So it's time to get the machines to work for us. I'll show you how in just a second, but first a few disclaimers. Because these tools will only catch up to 40 or 57% of your issues, depending on if you ask the people selling human experts or selling services around these tools. But then again, the human experts will only find up to 68% of your issues. So if the machines do the baseline, maybe us humans can do a little bit more heavy lifting in our end. Okay. So to demonstrate this, I've built a to-do app with Create View. It's nothing fancy. Your ordinary to-do app. It has a heading, a counter, an input with a submit button, a list of my to-dos. I can add a new to-do. I can mark it as done and I can remove it. So if I go into my code, it looks a little bit like this. Here I have my heading. I have my counter, I have my form with an input and a button. So the first thing I want to do in my project is I want to add linting. And I have ESLint in my project here, and I have added a plugin called Vue.js Accessibility. If you're on React, it's called JSX Alley. And there are similar plugins for all the main frameworks. So this is one install and one line of code. And now I'm going to add a new feature here in my view. So I'm going to add an input field with type text. And now I think I'm done. But I get a red squiggly and an error message here. Let's have a look. Form elements must have associated label element. So something is wrong here. And since I've added it in my code and not in my editor, my friend who's working in another editor will get the exact same kind of error message. I can also run it from the command line. And it will fail. So that means I can add it to my Git hooks and prevent me from committing code that's not good, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to remove that, and the next thing I want to do is I want to add unit testing. So for my button component here, for example, it's just a button with the props type, an on-click function, and a slot, which is the same as children in React. And for my button component, I've also written a unit test with jest, and I have added the extension jest-ax here. And then I have some usual API tests, but I have an accessibility test. And what the test does, it mounts my button, I pass the props, then I pass my element through ax and checks that it has no violations. So if I go to my terminal and I run my tests, everything is green, and fine. If I go back to my component, I remove my slot, the test fails because buttons must have a distinguishable text. So if I add it again, the test is green, everything is good, my component is at least 40% accessible, but I still need to make sure how I use this component as a consumer. So in my view, to-do view list here, I also have written a unit test that basically does the same thing. It mounts my component and run it through Axe. And if I go here and I forgot to add my text, the test will fail with the same result. And this will also catch if I, for example, add an image and forget to add alt text to my image. Okay. Then on top of the testing pyramid, we got end-to-end tests. So I've written some end-to-end tests with Playwright. And besides having a test for inserting to-dos, I have also a test for checking accessibility. So what I do is I put my page through Axe, I analyze it, and check that there are no violations. So for you to see this, I'm gonna run it headed, so the browser will actually pop up. And I have also added a slow-mo so that it will not be too fast. So it pops up some browsers, and I get the result. And the test actually fails, so let's have a look at the error message here. The link has insufficient color contrast to the surrounding text. So these tests will actually find stuff that in a real browser compared to the unit tests. And if I take a look in my at my to-do app here, I can see that actually the links that Create View handed me from the starting template is only distinguishable by color, and the contrast is too low. They should have an underline or a higher contrast. But let's say you're not on an evergreen project and can add these tests to all your components. There's tools for you as well. There's crawlers that can go through a list of websites and check for errors. I have used Lighthouse CI for this, so I went to the internet and found a list of websites that I'm gonna crawl to see if I find some errors. Yeah, you see the list there, jfokus.se. Wonder what that could be. So I go to my terminal, and since these take a little time to run, I have already collected the data and will only assert the result. And it shows that there are some errors here as well. So let's go into that and see what the errors are. Then we can see that the hamburger menu, for example, is missing a text, and there's some color contrast issues in the schedule part of the app. Okay, but why do we need all these tools? Wouldn't it be sufficient with just the end-to-end tests? Yeah, of course, but we want to catch the error as close to the developer as possible. The linting will give you instant feedback when you're typing. The unit tests will run fast and close to the source of error, while the end-to-end test takes more time. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is I want to add all these tools to my pipeline to make sure that I don't build and ship my product unless they are accessible. Because I know that my fellow developers are likely to push at some time with no verify. So I have added my linting job to my pipeline, my unit test, and my end-to-end test. And now I'm gonna push my code and let's see what happens. Boom, accessibility broke my build. Thank you.
So are there any questions?
What is considered an error here during these tests? Can you configure that to different levels? And
yes, you can configure that according to what WCAG level you think is suffice, and you can also exclude parts like with a selector, parts of your page that where you know you have an error, but you still want to ship. And you can also configure what types of rules you want. If you want to remove one of the rules from the WCAG definitions, you can do that in these tools as well. But now I've just used the default.
We got some feedback recently from a user of a screen reader that on one of our pages the focus landed on the wrong element. Do the automated tools find those kind of issues?
No, I don't think they will find those kind of issues. But with like Playwright or end-to-end testing, you got Cypress as well that you can do that kind of testing with. You can actually like do interaction for like a real user in the browser and check the results. But they will probably not be able to say that the focus is on the wrong in the wrong place, I don't think.
Okay, no more questions. Then we thank him with a big applause.